I knew we were going to get into the second episode and be a little kooky. I knew it was going to happen. I was ready for that.
I didn't think it was going to be Andrew Lloyd Webber kooky.
Hello and welcome to Take Your Time, a Persona podcast in which we play Persona 3 Reload in real time along with the in-game calendar dates, day by day, week by week, month by month, and through the most thrilling, exciting exams of all time. My name is Jonathon Dornbush. I'm your host this week, joined as always by my co-host Tom Marks. Tom, how are you doing?
I almost started singing 525,600 minutes as you were doing day by day, week by week. I don't know why.
Well, it's been so long since I've seen you, so it's great to have you here.
How do you measure a year, Jonathan? In Persona games?
I pretty much do at this point in my life. I think I am measuring a lot of my life. I realized I was having a conversation with someone earlier today, no joke, someone we both know, and I was talking to them about life. They know this show exists, but I was talking to them about stuff I had to do, and then I was like, yeah, and then once I get through exams, there's not really much left to do, and they're like, wait, are you in school again? I was like, oh no, I'm so sorry, I mean Persona.
Amazing. Truly incredible.
That is our lives now. That is your life if you're playing along with us for this week, which is October 13th through the 19th, which is, we accidentally have written down the free week and full moon still in our intro, and I almost read that out, and I did anyway. No, it's exams. We're doing the tests. As you both, or as you know out there, both of us became smart little boys.
Exactly.
Are little geniuses, not to be, don't sue us, film Little Genius. We are tiny baby geniuses.
Not that. We're boss baby. Wait, no, I'm getting lost here.
We're Disney Channel original movie genius. We'll figure it out. We are smart, so we hopefully did well on the exams. I hope you all did as well. We'll be talking about those as well as the 3-ish days of free time we get after that. We are also using this week. We benched all of the questions and comments you all sent in, especially after last week's 2 weeks ago's full moon. Thank you so much for doing that. We're going to use those during the show as we have for all the exam weeks that are a little bit shorter and catch up with all of you because it's always such a joy to do so. So we'll do that and involve you all in the show as we involve those at the Palace Ruler tier over at patreon.com/takeyourtime for the Confidant Callout. This is, of course, a big thank you to everyone supporting us over at that tier. We appreciate so much your support for the show, for going the extra mile and being such big fans and showing your support in the ways you have. So thank you so much for helping us to keep the show running, for us to be able to do all the fun bonus content we do. And yeah, just as always, a huge Confidant Callout to Akechi as a Jelly Bean, Astral Clock Tower, Brody S., Cameron C., Claudia R., Dallas, Damon, Dan, Dan F., Danimal Lover 01, Default Titus, Dexter, I Kill Gods for Fun, Caitlin E., Keegan H., Michael V., Philip S., Programmer Sid, Sam K., Sarah M., Shade, Willy Wang Wang, and as of now, Metaphor Refantasio out now, because unfortunately, if you've changed your name, apologies, we're recording, and that is currently your name, so that's what we have to go with. But
boy, Jonathan, it's been a whole week since Metaphor came out. How are you liking it? How are you liking it?
I'm 70 hours in. It's been a whirlwind of 7 minutes. No, it's been out on my PS5 for several minutes now, so it's waiting out for me in the other room. Looking forward to it. Not at all.
I mean, I've played a bunch. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I know. I've been thinking about it all week, as I'm sure many people have in the past, because they're listening to this hopefully after they've been enjoying some Metaphor. And just again, as a reminder, our bonus content plans for the month are certainly around Metaphor. It's going to be a little bit later in the month because we want to make sure all of you have time to play the game, get some good one-on-one time with this wonderful new fantasy world. Yes, Tom.
To be clear, not beat the game.
No, you don't have to beat
We're not asking people to rush through it. We're not going to touch on story spoilery wild stuff. We just want to talk a little more in depth than, the demo allowed.
Yes, yeah. We want to get a little bit past there. We are not making preview content here, though. I guess, Atlas, if you want to invite us specifically for the show for Persona 6, we're around. I think it'll be wonderful to jump in there and talk a little bit more in depth about some of the mechanics, because there's obviously some key differences here, even if the foundations are very much within the realm of Persona. Some of the story stuff early on, the character stuff, there's a lot to dig into. Also, just a shout out in general. I don't really know. This is a small thing, and as we continue to breadcrumb, I really like the voice work so far, and I don't think I really know any of the voice actors, which is cool. But I really think I'm really engaged with the story so far. So we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about that.
Should be fun. So we'll be doing that later this month. You can head on over to patreon.com/takeyourtime to find out how to support the show if you'd like to, as well as to be involved in the comments and questions and discussion around that bonus content, and to enjoy all the bonus content we have up already. But yeah, of course, we will this week be jumping into all the exams and your comments. We'll save comments and questions till after we get through exams. But before we get there, Tom, you have a one-person pop quiz result to give us this week, as unfortunately due to our scheduling, we don't know what people guessed.
Yes, we're going to check your answers next week, hopefully. But for now, the question was, how does Ken know about superconductivity during that study session with Igus? So, Jonathan, did you know the answer to this one?
Is it because he rubbed his feet on the carpet really fast and then touched a balloon or whatever, and, his hair went up?
On him? Yeah. You nailed it.
Perfect. As always. I knew it. No, I don't know the answer.
No, it's because he rubbed a balloon on Koromar.
Oh, that poor pup.
No, the answer, which is one of the options that you get when you respond to him knowing about superconductivity, it's a Featherman attack.
Oh, that's really good. I don't think I chose that one.
There's an attack in Featherman called the Superconductivity Cyclone.
That's
and
cute.
If you say specifically superconductivity cyclone, he goes, yeah, the attack from Featherman. Not that I know about that show. Some kids were watching it, and I heard them. Because he wants to be an adult.
I love that he keeps pretending he doesn't know this show that we very clearly know he loves.
Yeah, it's really cute. It's really cute that he knows this very adult thing, and then you find out that it's because of a children's TV show. It's nice. Anyway, that was the question.
I think we've all probably learned something from a show we watched as kids. I feel like that's definitely where you learn some weird fundamentals in life.
I learned that pioneers used to drive rocks across the prairie to get to different places.
From Angry Beavers? From what?
That's SpongeBob.
Oh, yes, of course.
It's not just a boulder. It's a rock. This is a place I should have stuck with House. This is a place that
yeah, I learned it's not lupus.
Yeah, the Angry Beavers quote that stays in my head until the day I die is the horror episode where they're like hiding out in their house, and every time they like are sending away for like mail-in toys to save them, and there's a thing that they pull on a doll, or like it's like a spinning thing that tots, and every time they pull it, it goes, "Send more money, we'll send more stuff."
I think I remember that.
It has stuck with me as like a hyper relevant quote in my life for a very long time.
That's really good. This is for Angry Beavers. I got served a TikTok of one of the voice actors talking about, apparently, fun fact, they used to record a lot of episodes of that show in one take because they like didn't do redos, because the two actors just bounced off each other so well and knew each other's tells about how to kind of dip in and dip out of lines. They were just perfectly in sync on a lot of episodes. That's amazing. Apparently. Yeah.
Underrated show.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving on.
We'll save the underrated Nickelodeon cartoon chat for a bonus episode, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And move on to this week in Persona, which is October 13th through the 19th. Exams. And yes, as always, you get thrown right in. Perhaps if you finished last week's study exam where Tom and I both got genius marks, you would go right in and really have to be on your stuff. You got to be in the game, get your head in the game. High School Musical, great film, and be ready to answer these exam questions. You're going to say it's not, Tom? Don't give me that face.
I've never seen it.
What?
Anybody, you can listen to that ramble at the end. Let's talk about exams.
Let's talk about exams. There's not much to really say. There's a few days of exams. They start on October 13th, the very beginning of the week that we have created for our game. This is the answer about dopamine.
Yes.
That's it. You move on. We keep going.
Yep.
October 14th.
In the words of Morgana, ooh, you can do this.
Your hands just keep writing. You can't seem to. It's just flowing out of you. You get to October 14th. It's about Pythagoras. We know it.
Yep.
It's old hat.
That was another one. The dopamine one was pretty recent. The Pythagoras one was a little bit earlier, I think, in the month.
Yeah, dopamine was very recent.
Yeah.
And then October 15th, superconductivity. Again, very recently in our brains.
Yeah, from the study group.
Yeah. And then October 16th is the Spill the Beans one, which is very easy as an American. I assume perhaps maybe if it's not a Japanese idiom, it would make sense that it's a little tougher, but...
Yeah. I appreciated this one when it came up in class, and I think it's very funny that it also gets brought up in the studies.
In the exams.
Or in the exams.
Yeah, and so you do these, and then you get to the 17th, and the exams are over. That was it. We did them all.
Hooray! And we were the smartest, smart boys, so it was easy for us.
We were. We didn't have a problem whatsoever. I was cool with everything, and you get out to October 17th, and I do like that these final exam days where you don't have a question is free time. You still get to do stuff. And so I believe this is a free day and night. So what did you do for both?
I got Fuga up to 7.
Cool.
Which two weeks ago, I think, on the episode, I complained a little bit about her storyline. My opinions haven't wildly changed about that, but also I still am happy to be hanging out with her because I like Fuga. So that's basically where I'm at with it. Then in the evening, I did the farming sim game, the Not Harvest Moon, that you did last week.
Excellent. That is a useful one to have for sure. Yes.
And also, my dog's knife arrived.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Shopping Network arrives after your daytime hang. Mine was with Yukari. Got her to rank 4. So jumped in there for that. And then because I had done the veggie sim thing last week, I was like, time to plant. We're planting with Junpei tonight. It didn't get him a bonus. He already has this one for me, but it felt really essential to take advantage of the veggie sim site for me. So did that here.
Sure.
And yeah, there's a thing I have here. I don't want to spoil any pop quiz stuff, but there was a fun line from Junpei today. I don't know if you caught it.
Give it to me.
He called Tartarus Ol Tartar.
I remember that.
Which I loved. Had to write it down. And then we move on to October 18th, which is another completely free day. It's Sunday. It's you got the shopping in the morning to do. You may have gotten some texts in the morning from people, I believe.
Yeah, the shopping is instant curry and instant ramen.
Yes.
Which is neat. I think it's an SP item and health item or something like that.
Yes. It's a good bundle to get. I would say don't skip it.
I think my only text was from Hiraga this week, maybe.
I had Hiraga and someone else, but I can't remember who. But he was in there, so I had someone else, but I didn't hang out with either of them. What did you do on this day?
I got Kamiki to 4. I am still very much enjoying the Kamiki storyline. It is a little bit... What's the right way to put it? A little bit one note, a little bit straightforward in that it is just kind of you always philosophizing with him on the bench. But the conversations themselves and the character and the growth, the development I'm seeing through him are really compelling. So it's okay to me that it's simple, because unlike Tanaka, where it was very, very simple, you just went to the place and talked to him, but I didn't give a crap about what he was saying. This is like, I'm very interested in learning more about who this person is and how they think about life. And so the fact that it's simple, I'm still on board with.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's fair. I hung out with him and got him to rank 6, and yeah, you're certainly... There's not a lot of variety in where this story goes, but I think for one that is so more self-contained and smaller in scope, it's really effective. Yeah.
Self-contained and yet also still hyper-relevant to what's going on. Like
Absolutely.
having a character to just talk about death with right after Shinji dying is really... I feel like that's not a coincidence that Kimiki shows up just before that, right? Or not terribly long before that.
No, yeah. In fact, I think I found him almost later than either you or me did in this playthrough. And so for me, it almost felt like, oh, he is here now to help talk about death in an interesting way. Yeah.
Yeah, and I really like that. So I'm happy to see more of him.
Yeah, absolutely. What'd you do for the evening?
So the evening, there was a new video, which is, we talked about 2 weeks ago, there was this big blockage of them that I hadn't unleashed.
Yes.
This one is new and continues the trend of being stupid and fan servicey.
Yeah.
This is Yukari trying on her maid outfit, and then there's a very funny moment inside it where she makes fun of Junpei and Akihiko by like imitating them for what they would say, but then she also forces Fuka to try on a maid outfit. And the thing that really bothers me about this whole scene, if it was just fan servicey her trying out the maid outfit, I'd be like, yeah, what, that's dumb, but whatever. But the date on the tape is October 12th, which means this is the day before finals, which means that like it's not even connected to the maid thing that was supposed to happen a month earlier. It's
so far gone. Yeah.
It is so far gone to return to this joke. It is so far gone to return to this joke. It just is very fan servicey and dumb.
It's really funny to have maybe 2 or 3 examples of phenomenal tapes that we've gotten, and then to have this other half of them. There's no in the middle. It's either really good character building or just the most fan servicey scene they could throw in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that happened. That was a thing.
That's fair.
And then to make my brain better, I mentally trained it with some software on the computer.
Oh, nice.
Which increased my max SP by 7.
Hell yeah, that's really useful to do. I took Koromaru for a walk and ran into Yuko, which is good because I believe I'm stalled out with them point-wise. So
nice.
Then we move on to October 19th, our final day of the week.
Is this our last day?
Our last day.
Through it.
Yeah. Well, we got some good comments to talk about. That's I'm interested in talking about this week. Anyway, it's a pretty quick week. The results are up.
Yeah.
I assume you, as well as I, scored the highest.
Highest in our grade.
We got points for something, but I don't care. I'm too cool. I'm too smart. I don't need points.
There's also a question in class that you can answer, and similarly, we don't care about those anymore, but that's okay.
I literally wrote down, who cares now? This is garbage.
You talk to a teacher, Mr. Ono doesn't show up with that helmet yet, but you get in academics.
Yeah, it's all, you're just wasting time, but...
And then, Jonathan.
Yes.
And then you know what doesn't happen? You go to Mitsuru. You get a present for being a smart, good boy. She gives you the something of unity that lets you do something. It's an item. It's a good item.
Yeah.
And then you go, hey, Mitsuru, you wanna walk home together? And she goes, no. And the game, which previously said you had to be a genius, now says, you're just not that close to her, though. And doesn't let you hang out with her yet.
You've fallen into my trap. Excellent. Yes.
I did. I totally did. I literally, in all caps, just have, why can't I hang out with Mitsuru yet in my show notes. I assume that this means that this is time-gated in the same way Aigis is, I assume. Because it's like she's not enough of a human yet, but I could hang out with her maybe if she becomes that. So that's my assumption, is that there's some event that has to happen and then it'll actually trigger and then you can actually hang out with her. And me rushing academics was just sort of worrying when I didn't need to. Last week I talked about.
It was more for the test at that point then. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I guess at that point. I didn't know it was for the test at that point.
Exactly, yeah. The game told you, though, hey, it's for the test, my little dude. Sit down.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, so can't hang out with Mitsuru yet. I was very sad about that.
Yeah. A cool dude in a leather jacket came over and put his arm around Mitsuru and was like, hey, kid, appreciate you looking out for my girl, and then walked away from you.
That's kind of how it felt, yeah.
Yeah, flicked a cigarette in your direction. It's like, we're in the middle of the school, my guy.
Yeah.
Well, maybe one day.
One day.
That'll help answer a question later on, I think, for those at home. But before we get there, we do have... What did you do with your day then, since you were, stopped
it's
in
so
your tracks.
depressing. It's so depressing. It's just so depressing how predictable I am. It was like, she's too busy with student council and you don't know her well enough yet. And I was like, what if I hang out with the student council team then? What if maybe I have to get Odagiri to 10? So I went and got Odagiri to 9.
And we called Junpei a lovesick puppy.
I know, right?
It's great.
The truth of the matter also is that Odagiri's storyline really I was not into for like the first 6, and then I think turned a corner in a way that I'm enjoying, and I would love to see the end of it. So I was excited to get him to 9 when it was like kind of convenient to hang out with him.
That's fair. The back half of that one definitely ramps up to be a little more interesting. So I get that.
Yeah.
I hung out with Yukari during the day again and got her to, I believe it was rank 5. So, yeah.
Okay, nice. I think I'm at 5 as well. 4 or 5 with her.
Cool. And that was my day. What about in your evening? What did you do?
Evening was, I kind of knew already because I had looked this up from last week. This is when I hung out with Akihiko. I'm not sure if you did the same.
I did the same, hoping that you had put it off for this week.
So this is the thing that I said last week. I looked up if you could do this hangout later, and it said, after the Monday after finals or after exams, you can do this hangout session still. So this is the one where you cook a ton of pancakes together. Specifically, a tartarus of pancakes, as Junpei calls it.
An old tartar of pancakes.
Yes, exactly.
It's
It's a sweet scene because Akihiko's like, I bought all of this stuff to cook a ton of pancakes. How do you cook pancakes? You have to cook all of the pancakes for him, and he's bought like 24 eggs, and you make 3 giant towers of pancakes. It's a cute scene.
Yeah, no, it's very sweet. I always important plot wise or not, I think these are always just worth finding the time for, at least on a playthrough if you play through these games multiple times, because it's just really where you get so much from these characters. It's wonderful to see them fleshed out in these ways, kind of have these details colored in for you, and I think makes the investment over this time feel a little bit more worthwhile.
Yeah, and everyone eats together, and then you do get some story stuff. You do get some story stuff because this is a scene that seems like it had to be done after Shinji's death, and so you have him talking about how his sister made that medal that he found in the box earlier, and he wants to be strong and kind for her, but he doesn't think he doesn't really know what it means to be those things. And similar to Ken, sort of echoing the scene that we got with Ken, he says that he'd been running away and he wants to become stronger, right? He wants to stop running away. And part of that is he very casually is like, I ran into those guys that wanted to beat me up on the way home, and I just let them swing at me until they got tired.
I love it. He's definitely the type of guy who, like, they swing at him and he just does that really cool dodge out of the way. Like, they barely can hit him. It's incredible. Yeah, that's that guy.
Yeah.
It's sweet. So, it's good to do.
It's a nice little scene.
Yeah.
It's one of the few scenes I feel like we've seen Akihiko not really know what he's talking about. Like, he just sort of ran in and was like, pancakes, how do we do this? And that's not really a vibe he puts off very often. So it was cool to see him just sort of wanting to do this thing from his childhood, not even if he didn't know how.
Yeah. Even though pancakes give you and I PTSD, it's nice to talk about them. Well, yeah, that's the week in Persona 3 Reload. We got all through it. Next week is going to be a standard week of time. We're not going anything crazy on the calendar right now. It's going to be October 20th through the 26th. So we'll be out of exams. You'll have things to talk about. Beyond, hey, answered 4 questions. My save is 2 minutes later on the screen. Okay. But yeah, we do. There's one thing the game is going to telegraph to you later this month. But I do think it's worth positing because it's maybe something we can talk about next week. Have you, because the game doesn't show you it yet, it will later, but I do think it's interesting to talk about here, just to mention. Have you tried to go into Shinji's room?
No, I've not tried to go to basically anybody's room except for Ken's.
I mean, that's fair.
That's been like for conversations with him.
That's polite. That's a nice thing to do. You should try to go to Shinji's room.
Okay. I will.
Dexter, for what it's worth, also mentioned it in the Patreon. Don't want to take sole credit for it, but I do know what they're referring to. It will be mentioned in the game if you don't naturally stumble upon it, but I think it's worth, while we're still maybe in the mourning period, going toward.
I did go to the alley, but I went a day late and the blood spot was not there, and I was like, oh man, maybe they cleaned it up.
They're real good at cleanup there. Just like the Kirijo group was able to put that funeral together in 6 hours. They know what they're doing. Well,
I'm starting to think the Kirijo group are the baddies.
What? We'll find out maybe one day, but let's first take some of your comments and questions from over at patreon.com/takeyourtime. As we mentioned, these are from a couple of weeks ago. We appreciate everyone who wrote in. We wanted to make sure we had time to appropriately jump into these things. And one I'll pick off of our conversation earlier about your unfortunate hangout with Mitsuru. Damon asked, a question I'd like to ask you guys is to maybe do a mini deep dive into who you are romancing or planning to, I guess, and why you chose that person, why you maybe didn't choose other opportunities that are available. So, Tom, lift the lid on the mystery.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Reveal to the audience,
I don't know what you're talking about.
You just appear in a red wig. You're going to try to romance Mitsuru, I assume.
Yeah.
You're not going to go for a multi-romance playthrough, it seems like.
No, I'm just going to do... I don't like the idea of that. I thought that the scene in...
5? Yeah.
On Valentine's Day is very funny, but also it's just, like, not a thing role-play... It's an RPG, role-playing-wise. I don't want to do that.
Sure, that's fair.
Even though I imagine this game probably is, like... slightly cooler with it, given that you literally didn't have an option in the original if you completed social links.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm just gonna go for Mitsuru. She's the character that is most compelling to me out of those characters, and I also, there is an aspect of it that this is gonna sound lamer than I mean it, of like, oh, she's playing hard to get, but no, there is an aspect of it where I'm like, well, she's super late game, and
sure.
I like that more than like Yuko is like one of the first people that is available to date, and it feels like if I am only going to do one person, choosing someone, just like dating someone right out of the gate at the very beginning of the game feels sort of like lower hanging fruit. I'm objectifying here. I don't mean to be. I'm talking about the mechanical.
You're digging
act
this
of
hole for
dating
yourself.
them.
I'll let you.
Yeah. So the idea that Mitsuru is like Aigis to a similar extent, but I'm not. I think Aigis is like a weirder situation. That weirds me out that she's a robot. So the fact that Mitsuru is like really, you have to get the highest level of the hardest to get stat, and then there's also potentially this time gate thing that I don't know about. I would like. The only reason I'm not considering Mitsuru is because what if it's not a time gate and I actually can't date her, and I wait because I did that in Mass Effect 2, I think it was.
Okay.
You're like, Kelly is like the person on your ship that's like your helper, and I spent all of this time focusing on her as a romance option, and then I found out later that it's not. She wasn't a romance option. She was like she was like a side thing where like you could get her to do a dance for you in your cabin, and that was it. And I was like so disappointed that it was not actually like a romance option, and I had deferred all of these other options to get to this late game thing that I then learned I didn't need to defer anything. And
that's
anyway.
So funny. I've never played Mass Effect, so the only romance options I'm aware of that people seem to choose are either Garrus or I don't know her name, but Yvonne Strahovski's character.
Would that be Liara Tassoni?
She's the black and white outfit.
From 2. Yeah. I can't remember her name right now. I'm blanking, but yes.
Star of Teapot on Peacock. I keep getting ads for it.
Teacup? I think it's Teacup.
Is it Teacup? All right. It's fine. It's too simple a name. Yeah. Now available on peacock.com. I am in this run
Yeah.
Going to my current plan is to romance Yukari.
Okay.
Because of sort of, I think it allows for, I don't know where that romance goes, but I think it allows for an interesting build up. To some extent, it feels like what the game is pushing you toward a little bit, especially with the scenes at like the beach during the summer when there's that hug moment and things like that. She is sort of the one who's kind of most with you from the beginning, obviously. Like, you save her at the start. She opens up to you early on. There's sort of this, like, I guess long-term friendship becomes romance angle to that I think works for like a teenage story. So
it's a nice narrative.
Yes, exactly. So I kind of want to see where that payoff goes, and I'm curious of how like their relationship together works for Yukari, who obviously is going through a lot. So that is my current plan, but sort of similar to you in the sense of it is not like a disrespect thing to those characters, because like I think we've both talked about like, oh, Yuko I think is a pretty interesting character from the jump. There's interesting aspects to like Chihiro at the beginning as well and all that sort of stuff, but I think if you lock yourself in and then you realize, oh, the story path here is more interesting to discuss later on, you feel like you might lock yourself out. So I get where you're coming from there. But yeah, that is the plan.
Yeah, it's always funny to talk about romance. It's always objectifying in a weird way. It doesn't have to be logical, I think, a lot of the or maybe the better way to put it is like it's almost more logical than it should be. Like, we have very specific reasons for wanting to like date specific characters. It's not like we have emotional connections to these digital avatars that are like pushing us towards, it's always funny to talk about that stuff. That's actually spoilers for a bonus episode. I'm sure we're going to talk about this. I actually really dig that Metaphor doesn't have dating. As far as I know, I'm not done with the game or anything. I think they've
said there isn't.
Yeah. And so like that feels so much more focused to me and towards what that game is doing and what its goals are. I am very much on the train of like, dating can be interesting in games, but it's never really what wildly appeals to me.
Same.
And I don't think I think it needs to add something. I don't think it needs to just be there to be there.
Yeah.
And sometimes in Persona games, it feels like it can be there because it's a high school thing.
Sure.
And not because like it makes as much sense. Like, I don't know. I'm just not, I'm of the opinion that I don't need it in my games. I'm just doing it because it's a mechanic and it makes sense, and Mitsuru is best girl, so I'm sorry.
No, I always, I mean, with these, it's really thinking to me like how it progresses into the storyline here. I would say maybe in Baldur's Gate 3 it was like I'm really invested in the way this character and I have had these conversations, so I think it makes sense for us to go down this path. Like there's definitely more systemic choice in that game, obviously, so there's a complexity level there that is lacking.
But Baldur's Gate 3 is also a great example about how dating... Baldur's Gate 3 is a fantastic example of how dating can be done well in an RPG, and also how dating can be done poorly, because when that game launched, they admitted, they were like, some of these numbers are out of whack, where like people are trying to jump you on your second night in camp because there was literally something wrong with the numbers on the back end. And I think that is a really good example of that game is so good at building genuine relationships that you would like to follow with its characters, and also was for a time a great example about how dating can really get in the way of otherwise interesting relationships or mechanics if it is done in an imbalanced or odd way.
Sure. But
that was this microcosm of that.
And I believe them because they're a phenomenally talented team, and that game is just, I can't even fathom the amount of work that has to go into adjusting a little minutia. But I really do like the thing of like, oh no, the numbers have made Lae'zel too horny. What have we done? Like, it's just a really funny.
The numbers did it.
The math is just making Astarion have to have sex with everyone.
Math is too sexy.
Yeah. Hey, if it is for you, that works great. But yeah, it's a...
I'm just saying. There's a question about Pythagoras and then a question about dopamine.
Yeah. I will say, just on the Baldur's Gate 3 to wrap it up there, how is... I'm blanking on her name, which doesn't speak great to the point I'm about to make, but how is the tiefling bard that you meet throughout that game, who you can meet at various points, not a party member / romanceable option.
Oh, she died immediately for me.
Oh, no, she's all throughout my game, and she's so fun and entertaining and like a great companion. It's like, she should be in the party.
No, yeah, spoilers, there's a way you can play that game that you decide at the very beginning of it that causes her to go dead.
That's fair. We'll
very quickly.
Find out all about that on our show where we play through Baldur's Gate 3 turn by turn, episode by episode.
Oh, no.
Moving on from there.
Yes.
We have quite a few questions.
Wait.
Yes.
Wait, I got a pitch for that show.
Okay.
Rather than doing it in time, we do it in space.
Oh.
So when they're in a forest village, we do the entire episode from the woods.
But we don't film it. It's only audio.
Yeah.
So it functionally doesn't matter.
Yes.
I thought you were going to just pitch, but we do it as a live actual play. Moving on from there, Francis asked, and it's okay if you don't have a full list at the moment. I don't, but just wondering how many social links you have completed at this moment. We all need a long discussion on our favorite Tanaka social link, but I was just kind of curious if you knew where you were at with completed ones. Obviously, Miyamoto, Maya.
Miyamoto. I'm searching the word max in my note stock. Mutatsu.
It's a shame
Tanaka.
You always write down when you love a scene. I loved it to the max.
Mutatsu, Tanaka, Miyamoto, Kenji, the old couple. That might be it for me.
Okay.
That might be it for me. And then I'm like 8 with Odagiri. I think I'm 8 or 9 with someone else. So I'm close with a lot of people, I think, right now. I'm at least 7+ with at least 3 or 4 people.
Okay.
But yeah, I think I have 5 done.
Okay, cool. That leads into also Damon's question, which is a sort of a flip of the other side of this, of who are we prioritizing? Or like, who do you find yourself gravitating toward the most, and who have you been tending to put off until later? They mentioned, I prioritize Akanari Kamiki due to the sense of urgency and because his hangouts are limited to Sundays and the Sea's companions. And I absolutely put off Suimitsu until there's nothing else I can do at all. Which feels close to you.
Yeah, I've come around. I did that one thing with Suimitsu, and I was like, okay, I'll give him more of a shot if it comes up. But then instead, I worked at a hippie store and then spent $10,000 because I literally looked at Suimitsu and was like, I would rather throw $10,000 in a well.
I'd rather maybe go broke throwing my money away.
Yeah. No, my priorities still right now are the team first. So the Seas people are the most interesting to me, pretty much just hands down.
Sure.
And then from there, I think my priorities currently are not actually on specific people, but finishing storylines. So like Chihiro is at 7 and I'd like to finish her. Odagiri is now at 9 and I really want to finish him, right? Kamiki is there because I like having a Sunday one that I sort of just always do, and that storyline is very compelling to me. But yeah, right now I'm in like tying up loose ends mode with my classmates.
Fair.
I care less about like specific people and more about getting those things finished.
For me, it's really been based on like availability and time of year or time of the calendar. So
yeah, that too.
100%. I just am ignoring the people outside of school when I have my schoolmates. But as we had with exams and none of them being around, suddenly Hayase and Maiko and finishing up the old couple, everyone's my friend again because I need to hang out with them. Mm-hmm. And so it is definitely a almost friendships of convenience way of approaching the social links. But that is my current approach from the standpoint of wanting to max all of them out so I can get the trophy. And if I don't, I genuinely don't know if I ever will, not because I don't love this game, but because I've played it twice within a year.
Yeah.
and I do need a break for the time being after
Fair.
we finish this one. So
Reasonable.
Well, because I'm also playing Metaphor and then the DLC, and then I keep thinking about Royal again, and then Golden's still just sitting on my PS5. It's a whole thing. But yeah, it's a very interesting balancing act in this game because it is so weighted to the day, especially. Whereas on the night side, you could do nothing for months and still finish Butatsu and Tanaka.
Yeah, I think that an important thing to mention maybe now at this point in the playthrough is I have given up hope on the idea that I'm going to finish all the social links.
I think I get that. Yeah. You're doing well, I'll say. You're making a lot of solid progress.
That's good to know, but I don't know how long the game is. I've intentionally tried to not look that up. I've looked in the calendar, but the calendar goes till March, and Persona 5 didn't go till March. So I don't know. I like not knowing. The thing about the social links that I was realizing is this game, I think, is just substantially harder in the amount of things it gives you time to do, and also gives you a lot more things that are quote unquote wastes of time. Like you talked about Shinji, right? Never hang out with Shinji. That technically in the scheme of the perfectionist, doing anything with Shinji is a waste of time. But me, as somebody who's never met these characters before, who doesn't know this story before, who's going through it for the first time, would have really regretted not hanging out with him.
Yeah.
Right? And similarly, studying with the study group is quote-unquote a waste of time, right? But there's not a lot going on at night, so maybe that's not really that. But also, there are so many things that this game gives you that are not mission critical to quote-unquote finish 100% it or whatever, that are worth doing to me as a first-time player. And I think I've just completely accepted the fact that I would much rather follow my heart and doing things I want to do than try to hit some sort of perfectionist goal that I just don't think I'm going to at this point, because I've already done too many of the trap activities or whatever.
Sure.
But trap activities I really, really enjoyed.
When I think when you're talking about waste of time, you're speaking to the idea of to maximize all of the social links, get all of those check marks off. And I think
yes,
as someone who's played the game through the full way and now on the second playthrough, I feel very confident saying, and I think you'd probably not disagree from what you've seen, some of that optional stuff that does take up time you could put toward a social link to complete them is some of the best stuff in the game.
Yeah,
and
a lot of it does not feel optional.
Yeah, so there is no wrong way to be approaching this game, and I think it, in a way, does give you a reason to go re-explore it again if you want to on a second playthrough, for those who want to see all of those things, but there's no wrong way to go, and I don't think that's bad to give up in that sense and just go where your heart tells you to go.
It is an aspect of this game that I think it does have over Persona 5. The deeper in I get, the more I really respect how much it branches out and how many options it gives you. I think I still am currently liking P5's structure of those chapters more.
Sure.
But it feels more like, how do I explain this? If you had a guide, and I'm sure people have written these, of the quote-unquote ideal way to spend every single day in P3 and P5, I think a brand new player, fresh playthrough could naturally, intuitively get closer to the P5 one on their first playthrough than I think you could on P3.
That's fair.
Does that make sense?
It does. I would probably say more specifically Royal would be, I guess, my only quibble there, because base 5 is definitely a little bit harder. But yeah,
it's absolutely true, because P5 Royal also gives you a lot more evenings and days and stuff like that.
But I agree with you in that sense of, I think a lot of people who played Royal, at least from who I've spoken to anecdotally, naturally get themselves toward the platinum in a way that they didn't seek to, but they kind of realize, I'm in the final third, and if I just do a couple things, I can get there, and I didn't expect to be there. It definitely leads you in that way more than this game does, but you have those opportunities for incredible stuff here.
I'm not saying is worse.
Sure.
Because with a 150-hour game, I think it is good that that game respects your time, and missing one thing halfway through, you don't want to replay the whole dang thing just to see that one thing.
Yeah.
So the idea that it makes all of these things more accessible to you, I think is probably intentional and very smart. But also, I really do respect P3 for how freeform it is and how many opportunities it gives you to make, again, quote unquote, wrong choices that are incredibly rewarding still from a different point of view. So yeah, that's my thoughts overall on hanging out with people right now, as they are.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Moving on from there, just for our final question, Q Ruddick, or Kaya Ruddick, please let me know, said, this question is for Tom specifically. As far as we know, based on what the game has said, with only one full moon boss left, that one final shadow, what is your prediction on where the game will go from there?
My prediction right now is, because I did look ahead, there's one at the calendar in the game, to be clear, not spoilery calendar. There's one full moon in November, then there's 2 full moons in December. There's full moon at the beginning of the month, and I think on December 31st there's a full moon. And so that'll be the harvest moon, blue moon, whatever you want to call it. And then there's more months, but I don't know what the deal with those are, so I'm just sort of not speculating. My theory, if I had to lay it out in some form, is that the final shadow will appear on the full moon in November. We will defeat it. It will not stop the dark hour, or something will happen where something else is going on. And then there will be some sort of other confrontation. Maybe the dark hour goes away and then comes back on the first full moon of December. And then there will be a larger actual final confrontation at the end of December. That would be and that's based a lot on my knowledge of how P5 is structured. So it could be just completely wrong, right? This game could just be doing things differently. But that's roughly what I would assume, if you put a gun to my head right now, might happen roughly structurally. I don't know specifically what's going to happen. I do still think the Kirijo group is going to be a villain in some way. I do still think that my instinct from that niggling part of the back of my head that's telling me to run away from Akutsuki is still there, and I do think he's going to have a heel turn in some fashion. So that's where my head is at.
Sure. Well, you will find out when we get to the real months of life, because that's where the game is going, and we got to wait until we get there.
Yep.
But I appreciate that. Yeah, it's good to know where you stand as we head into, we're a few weeks off from the next full moon. But
and everyone who's played it already can just point and laugh at me. What a fool.
They can all know how right or wrong you are, and we'll find out, all of us together, as we continue to go on this journey.
It would be pretty fun if I called that shot from episode 1 about Akutsuki, but it
would be impressive. But yeah. Moving on from there, we'll pretty much wrap things up. I think just as we end this episode, Lauren did ask, as we mentioned toward the top of the show, but asked if either of us will be playing Metaphor. As we've said, we hope you've been playing Metaphor. I've certainly played more by the time you have heard this. They also asked our initial thoughts on the Metaphor reviews. Tom, I don't really want to ask you too much there because you edited one of those.
I did.
So,
yes.
There's that. I think it was a great review. Chaim is an awesome reviewer. It was excellent to have his work there.
He knows his stuff. He also reviewed P3 Reload and the episode I Guess DLC for us.
Yeah.
He also reviewed Yakuza, or Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth for GameSpot. He also reviewed Final Fantasy VII Rebirth for us. This year has been an absolutely insane year for Sega in general, or Sega specifically, but also JRPGs in general.
For Michael Hyam specifically.
And for him, for Michael specifically, yeah.
But he's been putting in the work, and his reviews are always a treat to read, especially now that I just get to see them when they're done. But yeah, there's been a ton of tremendously really well done reviews out there across the board. So if you haven't read those, obviously it's getting a tremendous amount of praise. I think it's one of the best reviewed games of the year, tied with Astrobot, I think. And I
think it's just below now.
Just below
like
now.
As more came in, it kind of dipped a teeny bit. But yeah, it's up there in like the top 5 highest reviewed games of the year easily.
Yeah, it's doing pretty darn well for itself, which is awesome to see. And I'm really happy that it is now something. I think it was even something that we know about it from before Persona 5 even a little bit. Like I think they had talked about
I don't know.
Project Fantasy or whatever year. They've talked about it for years. It's been so long. So to finally have this game out there, it's really awesome. I highly recommend, even if you've been playing, if you hadn't read, because there's some really thoughtful criticism from Hyam, from, I believe, just Cogswell over at GameSpot. A few other incredible writers out there have been covering this game and doing great work. So go check that out. And we will, of course, be throwing our hat into the ring of discussion later this month with everyone over at patreon.com/takeyourtime. So if you want to join us over there, as well as the incredible community, go check it out. If you want to find out how you can support the show, get shows a day early, ad-free, and a host of bonus episodes that we've done already. But other than that, I think that's going to pretty much do us for this week's episode. But before we wrap, Tom, what is your pop quiz?
Okay.
On this quizzical
last week, you study with Igus to help her on her exams. So my question this week is, how'd Igus do on her exams, y'all? You can talk to her during one of the days, and I think it's the day that you get your test results. And she'll tell you all about how she did on her exams. My follow-up question for this, how'd she do on her exams? But a follow-up, what were her best subjects? Because she specifically says, I think it's 2. She calls out 2 subjects that she did better in than the others. So that's your question. Let us know.
Give us your, I guess, his best real subjects and her fake best subjects.
I feel like she'd be good at PE if that was an exam, but unfortunately...
Isn't that the only one Junpei does well at one point?
He jokes about it.
Okay.
He jokes about how if it was like for health and fitness class, he could help them study. Yeah. But yeah.
Well, let us know your answers over at Patreon, over at youtube.com/Dornology, where the video version of this show lives. Over on social, I'm at Dornbush and Tom is at Tom R. Marks. And as always, if you're enjoying the show, be sure to leave some reviews, write a little soliloquy about how much you're enjoying us talk about exams and soon Andrew Lloyd Webber and so much more. Don't forget to like and rate and share it with your pals. But pal, I'm sure glad I shared these few hours with you.
Aw, shucks.
And I'm looking forward to sharing many more as we continue to go through Persona 3 Reload over the coming weeks and months. But until then, that's going to do us for this week's episode. So thank you, as always, so much for listening, and we hope you seize the day. And really have to be on your stuff. You got to be in the game, get your head in the game. High School Musical, great film, and be ready to answer these exam questions. You're gonna say it's not, Tom? Don't give me that face. I've never seen it. You've what?
Yeah, it's the one with Zac Efron, right?
The one that made Zac Efron. The one with Zac Efron.
I've seen High School Musical, the musical.
Oh, his symptom test is fantastic early on. It kind of loses its way for a little bit.
I have never seen anything High School Musical related in any fashion.
You might have seen his symptom test. It was the first Disney Plus original series. It was a big deal. They launched the platform with it. Early on. It was one of the big ones, yeah.
No.
Season 1's really good. Obviously launched Olivia Rodrigo's career and whatnot, just like the first one launched them. But yeah.
I was a hipster. I watched the movie Camp and thought that was the best, and then didn't ever watch High School Musical.
Wait, do you mean Camp Rock?
No. I think it was just called Camp.
Was it a decom? Because if it was a decom, it was Camp Rock.
No, it definitely wasn't Camp Rock.
Okay.
Camp was a movie.
Like the movie...
2003? Is this right?
Camp.
You can cut all of this.
No, I'm not. This is going in.
Yeah. Camp is a 2003 American musical comedy drama film written and directed by Todd Graff about an upstate New York performing arts summer camp.
Wait, 2003, not 2023?
All I remember about this movie is that they rag on Andrew Lloyd Webber like crazy, and Stephen Sondheim is their god, and then he's in the movie later. Yeah, I was a theater kid. This was hyper relevant to me. I think they just remade it in like 2024.
That's what I was thinking of. I was thinking of... Yeah.
No, they remade it or made a new version of it or something. But
yeah,
no,
there's a theater camp. Which I hear is very good. I hear that one's really good, but I need to check it out.
What are we talking about? Can we talk about exams, please?
No, I want to talk about how Patty Lupone hates Andrew Lloyd Webber. It's really funny. Yeah, let's talk about exams. It is...
You know what my legitimate criticism of Andrew Lloyd Webber is? And I'm gonna make some enemies really quick here.
Please, go for it. Yeah.
The way I know that I don't like Andrew Lloyd Webber is because everything he's ever written, at some point, he runs out of lyrics, and the lyrics are just ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba, ba-ba-ba. And you can check anything he's ever written. At some point, he doesn't know what to write anymore, and he just goes to la-da-da-da-da-da-da, and it's lazy, Andrew.
Every ALW song ends that way. Every single song. Fun fact. Yeah. Go listen to Cats. It's on the official broadcast recording. My favorite Andrew Lloyd Webber thing is actually Paul F. Tompkins does Andrew Lloyd Webber on Comedy Bang Bang.
I've seen that, yes.
And I got to see him do it in person, and he wears like a cape and a hat and everything and goes full in. It's good.
You should just snip this whole thing and put it at the end of the episode.
Sure.
And anybody who wants to know the insane ramble we just went on, you can stick around until the end.
In the comments, leave your favorite Andrew Lloyd Webber song.
This was the longest tangent we have gone on, like, potentially ever. It is the worst. Just, can you tell
exams
that we recorded
begin
2 episodes in a row?
I knew we were going to get into the second episode and be a little kooky. I knew it was going to happen. I was ready for that.
I didn't think it was going to be Andrew Lloyd Webber kooky.
No, I really did not expect that. I figured it was going to just stay in the realm of games. But no,